Okay, more chaos at Delaney Hall in New Jersey as protests continue against ICE agents.
It comes as New Jersey Governor Mikey Sherrill brings in state police to help.
We all need to do everything we can to cool things down now. I will not give ICE the pretext to expand operations in our state. For that reason, New Jersey law enforcement is today establishing a peaceful, protected protest zone in the area right outside Delaney Hall. My administration will be working together with community members, faith leaders, advocates, and state police to help people move there today. Our top priority is public safety, and we need to take this opportunity to lower the temperature now.
Let's bring in Saturday in America anchor Kayleigh McEnany. Kayleigh, I don't think you're very surprised by what Governor Sherrill is saying, but I am always a little bit shocked that she's talking about safety and she doesn't care that a lot of the people that are locked up in that detention center right now are people who didn't just cross over the border illegally. They've committed some pretty serious crimes here in the United States.
You're exactly right. And to that end, I have to admit, I am a little bit surprised because Mikey Sherrill was the so-called moderate, right? That's what we were told. And I don't think it's politically advantageous to stand on the side of these protesters who are biting ICE agents, who want criminals out on the streets. It's as if they didn't observe the results of the 2024 election where immigration brought the party to the promised land, the Republican Party. I'm a little surprised that they're leaning into this the way they are. I don't know what they see in the polling, but it's certainly not what I see.
And of course, protesters are upset about the treatment of many of these criminals, violent criminals, some of them, in the detention facility. But I really love DHS released the menu for some of the, and I just love the menu. For breakfast, we're having French toast, oatmeal, scrambled eggs. Sounds delicious. For lunch, we're having turkey stir fry. We're having chicken fajita meat tortilla. That sounds good. Chicken salad. And for dinner, we're having jambalaya, chicken patties, beef and bean burrito.
Yep. And they are purportedly protesting on behalf of these migrants who are being well fed. My question is, I care about children. I don't care if you're an illegal child or if you are an American citizen. I care about you. And I cared during the Biden administration that a Honduran girl said she was eating bloody and raw chicken that had feathers coming out of it. This was part of a lawsuit. And where were you guys to protest that? Where were you standing out of the Fort Bliss facility where kids were on suicide watch lists? Where were you? You weren't protesting. I cared about those kids. Fox did. We talked about those kids. They did not. They don't care about the illegal immigrant. They don't care about the U.S. citizen. They care about political power.
Do you remember when they set up a line, a helpline for kids who were sent to, with God knows who, so they could call and in case they were in trouble, and like 70,000 kids called after they were placed in these homes and said, I'm in danger, and no one answered. The 70,000 of them were not answered.
Didn't even answer the calls.
They didn't answer the calls to the number they gave to the kids to say, if you're in trouble, please call us if you don't feel safe. They didn't even answer the call.
The only person who was advocating for those kids was the big, bad, mean Tom Homan, the guy they like to demonize, who took it upon himself to go find many of these kids when the Trump administration took power. That is who cared, Tom Homan, not the Democrats.
And he rescued more than 30,000. I want to get your take on something else, though, and that is there is what was described to me by a Democrat insider in the Biden administration, universal anger over former First Lady Jill Biden speaking out now on 60 Minutes, not only trying to reframe the mental decline of her husband in the wake of that debate, but also justifying the pardons that Hunter Biden got. And, you know, here's a quote from what she said to CBS Sunday Morning. She said, Joe said in the beginning, I won't pardon Hunter. I won't pardon Hunter. And then the Justice Department changed, and I think that the process was not fair to Hunter. When Trump was elected, things changed, and we knew that he would target Hunter, and we just could not let our son go to jail on a charge that no one would go. I mean, no one has ever gone to jail for. Worth reminding our viewers in the same breath, the charges and the convictions that Hunter Biden had. You can see it there on your screen. Convicted of 3 felony gun charges tied to buying, possessing a gun in 2018 while using drugs, along with the financial and tax crimes. He pleaded guilty to 9 federal tax charges in California after being accused of failing to pay at least nearly $1.5 million in federal taxes while spending on an extravagant lifestyle. What do you make of this?
We all knew he was going to pardon Hunter. The moment he said that and repeated it, and his press secretary repeated it, I knew it was a lie. He is a father. He was going to pardon his son. It didn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. But she said the facts and the circumstances changed. No, they didn't. But I will tell you where the facts and the circumstances changed. He asserted executive privilege over the tapes where he interviewed with his biographer, and he said, yes, you can use these in the special counsel, but I don't want these released to the public. Well, what did change is we learned that Joe Biden was lying to us, and Kamala Harris was lying to us, and the entire administration was lying to us, saying they couldn't keep up with Joe Biden. There are real questions about the cover-up. I want to know what happened in the Situation Room as they were planning the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Were there acuity issues there? It is in the public interest to release these tapes. So if she wants to talk about change, the only thing that changed is we now know you all were lying, and it is in the public interest to get all of the facts.
Yeah, indeed, they were without a doubt lying. Meanwhile, the Democrat Party is struggling not only with the reemergence of the Biden family, but also they're struggling with men. Here is New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham talking about how Democrats actually don't need men. Listen.
We should be winning by stunning margins, given the shape of this country and the issues that we're all battling every single day for the people that we love in our communities. Straight up. Should be no contest. But it is. If women, Democratic women, just show up and vote, we're good. We don't need any of the men.
So how's that going to work out for them?
They continually try to write off half the country. I mean, this is, it's every week there's a new soundbite. So now they don't need men. Newsflash, you do need men. Go read the autopsy report, that devastating, terrible, horribly written DNC autopsy report that talks about the struggle with men. Now they have the soundbite. Irredeemable, deplorable, the Hillary Clinton comments, writing off half the country. Garbage, the Biden comments, writing off half the country. I don't like giving free advice to Democrats, but as someone who's worked in politics, you never want to write off mass constituencies.
Exactly.
But here you go.
Exactly. You can't. Both parties should be trying to win over all Americans because that's the whole point of government, by the way. Here's what the New York Times says, because they're saying the Democrats, obviously, they know that they have a problem with men. They're not doing it the right way. But Republicans are also worried about maintaining the lead they started to get in the last election. Here's what the with young men. Here's what the New York Times says about it. It says, in interviews with 24 young men in Wisconsin, Maine, Oregon, Arizona, Texas, Illinois, and Washington, D.C., many said their disaffection reached far beyond politics. They said they felt daunted by an unforgiving job market, pessimistic about matters on personal as their romantic prospects, and broadly unsure of where they fit in society. Neither party, they said, was speaking to their concerns. This morning, I was reading through articles that they put together for us, and one of them was how the number of jobs for teenagers has plummeted. And so there's a lot of questions around how that happened. I think a lot of young men also worried about AI. Is that gonna mean my job prospects in the future aren't as good? And then when they talk about their personal relationships and romantic, everyone knows, if a guy is, feels secure economically, gives him more confidence, and he's able to provide, then he can enter into that relationship in a much easier fashion. So help us understand what Republicans, you don't like to give Democrats advice. Let's see if you give Republicans advice on moving into the midterms.
Look to President Trump and what he did with young men. They are not just a given for the party, and we need to know that. You have diagnosed the real problems for young men, and President Trump spoke with them with the help of Alex Brusilowitz and his son Barron, who crafted a podcast strategy and went and spoke to young men where they're at. Went on Joe Rogan, spoke to young men in a way that they understand and places that they listen to. You see young men gravitating to people like Joe Rogan. I bet Spencer Pratt is so popular among young men. He's not talking Republican, Democrat. He's talking about serving the people in an outsider way, the same way that President Trump has done. So I think the party should take cues from Spencer Pratt, from President Donald Trump, people who have reached young men, because we cannot take this for granted.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.